Better document this now or else it never happened, right? And that's after I added a half of a quart. It was reading right on the add line, just right on the add, right on the line. It was in the crosshatch before, so I don't think this thing drank that much oil. And just to show you how many hours, it's 2.2. While we're at it, just for grins, let's see what the air filter looks like. So it's a 2.2 hour checkup here. Mowed with it once. The oil needed to top it off a little bit. This doesn't look half bad. You know, I'm not even going to disturb this. Nope, not gonna mess with it. Anyways, let's talk about the mulch kit. Got a Hurricane mulch kit installed. I mowed with it yesterday. Got about 2 hours on it. And so far so good. So we're gonna see what kind of shenanigans we can get into today. We're gonna do a little inspection like it calls for in the Scag manual. Wait, what? Inspection? What are you talking about? Yep, it says in the manual after 2, 4, 8 hours or something like that, you need to check on a few things. So we're going to jack her up here and look at the blades and make sure everything's good. Make sure we didn't lose any nuts or bolts from the spindles for the baffle kit on the Hurricane mulch kit. Inspect the blades and look at everything, make sure everything's sitting well. So let's see what we got. First off, let's talk about this mulch kit, Hurricane mulch kit. It comes with all the baffles, the block off plate, and the Hurricane mulching blades. And if I were to do this again, I would probably remove the deck. It makes it a lot easier. Because there's a point where when you jack up your Liberty Z, sometimes you can jack it on the deck, but that'll push this deck into the bottom of the chassis. And you need the room, especially with that center spindle, you need to remove this nut and washer, and this bolt will slide down through the bottom. Okay, you remove 2 bolts per spindle and replace it with new hardware, which is included in the kit. Now one of them, there's a little lip here, so they give you, one of the bolts is longer. At first I thought they gave me incorrect hardware, but it turns out that that's intentional. I did have some extra hardware, which is kind of interesting, but when you are trying to put the bolt through on the bottom of the center spindle, now you're reaching in underneath the mower and somehow reaching on top, go gadget arms, to put on a washer and a nut blindly. It's just a big pain in the butt. But I did that first. Once you get that center spindle done, man, everything else is really easy. But if I were to do it again, I'd probably just remove this deck here. So while we're up here, part of the maintenance Scag talks about after 2, 4, or 8 hours, something like that. It's right in the manual. They talk about just double checking your belts, making sure that everything is wearing properly and everything looks good underneath the spindles. I know it's hard for you guys to see, but it seems like the belt's okay. It looks like a line in the belt, but that looks like the molding or however it was made or stitched up or fabricated. It looks okay. Let's check the other side real quick. Hard to see way in there deep, but it seems like the belts are wearing fine. Everything's okay. There's no gouges or fray marks or anything. It looks okay. Now if you notice something on the spring here, this is the deck assist spring. It's a really long spring, and at a certain RPM I was hearing this rattling sound, and it turns out it was the spring. So I put a little piece of like 1-inch foam that you would put on your water heater pipes, just a little 1-inch piece of foam. I said, let's try it, let's see if it interferes, or maybe it's going to blow off or come off with the belts or vibration. And I mowed 2 acres with this and it's still there. And it really helps quite a bit. So I know I'm going to remove the light for just a second. But let me reach in here and remove this. See, it's just a little piece of foam, right? Let me see if I can get this light back in there for you guys. Okay, so without that, and the motor's running, you'll hear it's kind of strange. I never had that on the 48 Liberty, but it's a thing with the 52, so I assume maybe it's a different spring in there, or it's just sitting differently, but nonetheless, just put this little piece of foam in there. And I didn't even tie wrap it or glue it or nothing. It just sits there just like that. And man, it works. I don't hear that annoying buzzing sound anymore. All right, so looking at the Hurricane Mulch Kit under the deck here, as you can see, obviously I mowed, like I said, 2 acres, 2 hours, somewhere in there. But here are the the plates, part of the kit here, and you'll actually remove this bolt and the one directly across it on the back side here, and then you'll leave this one and this one here. That's the original hardware. It's got these little cutouts here so the plate can go up. Obviously you remove your old blades because these are the new Hurricane Mulch blades, and these plates go on each spindle. And that center one, man, was a pain in the butt. So this is the new hardware that's included, and they also provide you with new lock washers and I think they're nylock nuts on the top. So just a quick inspection here of, let's zoom in on this guy down here. Can't do that with a GoPro, can you? I still use an old school camcorder here. But it's interesting that the grass accumulates up there. So the bolts look good. They're all intact. And all the baffles, these little plates, mount in here. And all the hardware is included as well. You can see on the outside of the deck here, these bolts go through and the nuts are inside. And there's step-by-step instructions that tell you how to install this. And then on the very end there is the block-off plate. So all these baffles, they work in concert to make up this Hurricane Mulch Kit. And I will say it seemed to do rather well. When I first fired it up and I first started to mow the lawn, I had a lot of dust coming through the floor. This is the bottom of the floor where your feet would go. And I had a little bit of dust coming up here, and it made me wonder if the pitch was correct. I did do a quick measurement on the deck, and it seems to be about plus or minus 1/4 of an inch off, which is pretty close. I've seen them a lot worse than that. But over time, it started to, the dust started to settle. Or maybe it was my imagination, or maybe it was building up in areas like here. And I don't know if grass, you know, there's some areas that were, that just needed to be plugged up. Since it's a new kit, and once the grass started flying, it plugged up the areas, but I don't know if that's what's going on here. But I will say overall that the dust and everything that kicks up is a lot less than before when it was just an open chute on the side. It was dust city, and I would kick up so much dust, and you know, you make a pass, you turn and then come back, and you're driving through your dust back and forth, back and forth. And that's not only good for you, hopefully you're wearing a mask when you're operating, just to keep the dust out of your system, not COVID related, come on. But also it raises hell with your engine too. You gotta make sure you're squared away on your air filter for your engine and whatnot. So anyways, let's check that checklist out. Go down the rest of the list and what Scag says to look at for their little preliminary inspection, if you want to call it, 2-hour inspection. Then we'll wrap this video up. Okay, so I left the spindle covers off. Just wanted to leave them off for now to make sure everything's working okay, and we'll leave them off probably till the next oil change or so. Just want to make sure everything's wearing properly. That way I don't have to pull the covers and check and reinstall them. Alright, so Scag calls it an initial run-in procedure. Basically this is the 2-hour checkup, and they say to check the belts, make sure that the alignment and everything is good and it's wearing properly, and also check the hydro oil. Well, we know we can't check that anymore because the 21 models, they've removed the reservoir for the 2800 hydros here. Check for any loose hardware. Trust me, there's no loose hardware in this. I checked before this even went out for its first mow, but normally you can hear it if there's something loose or rattling. Check the interlock system. And when they mean interlock system, it's just basically there's a switch here. If you put it there and this park and brake's not up, it'll cut off the engine, the PTO switch, the safety switch, all the safety measures that are in this thing. And pretty much you'll know if something's not working because you won't be able to mow or won't engage the PTO properly. So, and last but not least, they want us to check the tire pressure. So, should we? Shall we? Yeah, sure. Why not? No, I'm not going to bore you guys with checking the tire pressure, but just preliminary stuff that you should be doing anyways before you even start this thing up to go mow. Check oil is number one. Gas, you'll know if you have gas or not, it won't start. And tire pressure, man, make sure you got an even cut. Otherwise, that could throw your deck off. So anyways, on that note, I think we'll end it here. So far, so good with the Hurricane mulching kit. It seems to be okay. Hopefully, we'll be able to see a difference in the grass, right? Hopefully, it'll send some of the nutrients back into the soil and the grass will be a little bit greener. That's the idea. Then it's nice not having this chute on the side. I don't know how many times I've went around trees or fence posts or got close to the house or something and this thing's popping and getting snagged. I mean, it can take it the beating, but I just don't want to mess it up. But it's much easier to have that nice smooth plate there. And real quick before we go, just want to show you how I retort the blades. 75 foot-pounds. It's a nice snap-on monster torque wrench here, and just turn this sucker on. It goes through a zero ring process. 74 should be 75, but I think the batteries are dying. It's getting a little low. But this is kind of a cool torque wrench. As you start torquing, you don't have to look at this. You'll actually see LEDs light up on either side. And it'll also give you feedback. It'll vibrate the handle and it'll also beep. So it's pretty handy tool. I picked this up from a gentleman locally off of Craigslist. I think this is about 600 bucks new. It's ridiculous. You know, Snap-on, you pay for that name. But I picked it up from him, I think, for 150 bucks or something. And he was going off to be a mechanic with Ferrari. So kind of cool. If you see this video, give me a shout out. Unlikely, but you never know. Small world we live in. All right, guys, that's it. We'll catch you on the next one. Take her easy.